Okay, the purpose of this video is to go through some setup of the course to make it easier for you to navigate, so you kind of know where things are located and what is good to know and helpful. So this is completely informational. There's some important things that I'm about to share with you that you'll want to take note of, but so let's just walk down the list. So the first one is make sure you are logged on to my.usf, or as we passionately call it, the LMS, and then you can kind of follow along. My courses, whether it be 225 or 226, Principles of Accounting 1 or 2, I have them both set up exactly the same. So when you go from one to the other, it's very transparent. But if you are on the LMS and notice underneath the Handouts tab, which is on the main page, the home page of 225 or 6, the first thing I have there is the syllabi. So if you lose your syllabi or need to make, you have questions or you want to reference, you got a copy of the syllabi there. Keep going down. There are 3 links. Cengage Now. Well, the first one is how to enroll into the online homework. So that Cengage Now enroll link will bring you straight to that site so you can register. If you have a hard time figuring out how to register and walk through, the next link, the Cengage Now enrollment guide, is provided, and that will do a step-by-step of how to get you to the right spot and get enrolled. The last one there is just a technical support. So if you've got issues and it's 9 o'clock at night, that's the best place to go. If it's a technical issue, that's where I would direct you versus coming to me. For those of you that are taking a course that it is completely 100% online and there is no face-to-face component, this RP Now information is provided to you, as that's where we will take our, if you call it, in-class exam. So since we don't meet face-to-face, this is a proctoring exam software. Make sure you look at that prior to the actual exam date so that you have everything in place and realize that this is a proctoring type of software. Moving along, there's the disability statement and accommodations, so that's made aware to you. Tutoring, if this is a semester class during the academic year, whether it's accelerated or not, but it's during the academic year, there is tutoring available. You can always ask me if there's a tutor available for a non-academic year course, and I can let you know. Many times there are not tutors available in the summer, but certainly there are many options during the academic year. Keep scrolling down. You got all of the PowerPoints there by chapter, and they are narrated. But let me explain to you where you find those. So that's the hard copy PowerPoint on this site that you're looking at, but they're located in Cengage. So log into Cengage Now, and under the Assignments tab, there are narrated PowerPoints by chapter. And then you need to click on whichever chapter you're looking at. So click on chapter 3 of the narrated PowerPoints, and that's how you get into it. The PowerPoints are broken down by learning objectives within each chapter. And then what you need to do is click to watch the Tell Me More learning objective number 4. And then that video will pop up. And then I would ask that you answer those questions. There's probably like 2 or 3, and it's very simple. They're very, very, very simple, but they pull out the learning objectives of that part of the chapter. I want you to know the scores to those questions are not recorded in the grade book. They're not recorded in the grade book, but I will tell you this. if there gets to be at the end of the semester and we are like so very, very close from making it be a B minus to a B, or that B plus would almost, just such a little bit would get us to an A minus. I'm going to look here first to see that you went through all of the PowerPoints and you answered the questions. I don't care about the score, but I will check to make sure that you did the PowerPoints. The PowerPoints are instrumental. They are narrated, they're good. It helps break down the chapter, usually in 4, 5, 6 sections, to make sure you understand them. So if someone comes to me and says, I don't understand what's going on, the first thing I'm going to check is, did you go through the PowerPoints and that and those videos? So please make note of that and do them. The discussion questions, there is some solutions. Just know that those are out there. I'm going to talk about those in a little bit. So just keep in mind that those are there, and we'll readdress those here in a minute. And then keep going down and you see some study guides. And they're located also on Cengage now. There is the study guide, which is completely unanswered, just has the study guide out there. And then there's the study guide solution. And they're both out there, and you have access to them. Many students in previous years have printed off the study guide without the solution and then tried to answer them, and then went to the solutions to see how they did. Other students went straight to the solution and just printed them as such and used that to review and make sure that they understood and knew the material before going on. Either one is fine. There is only so much time in a day, so I understand if you need to just print them with the solutions and review them that way. That is totally fine. Now, I think I've gotten through the setup of the LMS. Underneath the coursework, you'll see I have them by chapter, and I would tell you just to follow and step by step underneath each chapter as we go. Now I'd like you to open up your textbook, and I'm just going to use chapter 3 for an example because they're all the same. What I'm about to talk about is the setup for all the chapters. So if you could turn to page 111, for example, this is chapter 3. And what I would like to point out here is on page 111, you notice that they have 6, right at the top, there are 6 learning objectives. The chapter is broken out by those learning objectives. And those are good to know, and we'll look at that here in a bit. What I would tell you is as you page through here, page through this chapter with me, and like on page 113, you'll see there's some exhibits there, Exhibit 1 and Exhibit 2. I would ask that you look at those before you just move on. Read them carefully and try to understand them before you move on. If you look at page 115, in the light shaded green box is a journal entry, and there are going to be chapters with several of those light green boxes of journal entries, and I would tell you, you must look at those. I would, in your own notes, keep track of them. Those are things that we'll look at again and perform again and again, so make sure we understand them before you just move on. If you turn to page 122, it's just an example. This is just an example. Page 122 in the upper left-hand corner, you see Objective 4. So now we are in the 4th part of the chapter, looking at the 4th objective. So before you move on to the next objective or the next part of the chapter, make sure you understand what you are doing before you move on, because it's like a page break. Now we're on to another topic. Turn all the way back to page 130, and you see at the bottom of that page is a chapter summary. That chapter summary, if you notice, there's 7 items there. It goes over to page 131. So it gets to be real close to the learning objectives, but it summarizes it, and you could about imagine there's going to be the 6 objectives summarized, and in this case there's yet one more item in that summary. I would read that at the end and before an exam. You understand those chapter summary. Key terms is on page 131. If you can't remember what the definition of this term is, you can look on page 131 and it can give you some direction as far as where to look at in the chapter. I am not a big term tester, so you don't need to like print all these off and memorize the terms. We start to use them so frequently you understand them, and we don't test them so much. Then you get on to the bottom of page 131 and it says practice. This is something that I don't record, but I want you to know that it's available and it's very useful. Practice. So they give you some multiple choice questions. Then flip over to page 132 and there's some exercises, just very short exercises. And then you keep moving along, you get to a problem on page 134. And those are all provided to you. They're very good practice. But then I also understand there's only so much time and that you don't have time to do all of that. If you turn to page 135, there is the answers to those multiple choice questions and the answers to those exercises, as well as the solution to the large problem on the page 136 and 137. Why I bring this up is when you're doing those problems and the exercises that I will assign, sometimes there is the question, I don't know where to start. I don't even know how to set this up. And of course, I would tell you to look into the chapter, and there's 9 times out of 10, there's going to be some guidance there. But if you need even more guidance and another example, with no question, I would look at this solution for these exercises and problem. Without fail, you will find some direction there. I look at the bottom of page 136, the solution to those journal entries. That's knowing chapter 3. That's what we cover in chapter 3. It's those, those 6 journal entries and how to post them. This is where you would want to go. Moving on, then there's some discussion questions on page 137. That's what I'm talking about when I said we would refer back to the discussion question solutions that are provided on the LMS. Here are questions that are truly worth your time and effort to go through. These are questions that you'll see on the exam, and I will not assign these. However, I would ask that you read them and then you look at the solutions that are on the LMS. Very, very helpful, and it's a great way to solidify your understanding of each chapter. On page 138, you see there's some basic exercises there. The basic exercises I never assign. They're very good to go through. You'll find them on the LMS. Excuse me, not on the LMS. You'll find them on Cengage Now. They're out there. They're not assigned, and many times students will not go through them. But if they need some extra help or extra practice, that's where you can look. The exercises where you see it starts on page 139, that I do assign. Though you will notice I will assign specific ones out of that, as well as if you move all the way to page 144, the problems, I always assign out of Series A. So if I ever assign a problem and I tell you it's problem number 1 or number 2 or whichever, know that it's coming from Series A unless I tell you differently. Unless I tell you differently, they will always be from Series A. So that is essentially the time I wanted to take explaining to you the setup of the course, how the LMS looks, so you know where to go, but more importantly, the layout of the textbook. They're the same for each chapter. This is a great author. I have used this author for many, many years. If you take the time to use all of those resources, you will do well. So if you have other questions, though, feel free to let me know. Thank you.